ensuring continuous supply of energy services to every division of Ghana in an effective, efficient manner to make sure that power is brought to the various homes at the Benatip at a stage that they need it, at a cost that can be afforded, and in a manner that will trigger growth in the economy. The power sector, as you are all aware, runs from generation, transmission, distribution, supply, and metering. The power sector works similar as the gas sector. The upstream gas sector is similar to what we call the generation. And so when you see power in your homes, it is not only as a result of the supply or metering. The last point in your home, which is the supply end, is where the power is tapped from the pole to your house. The metering is what triggers the revenue for the agencies. The transmission is the long distance that you see from the point of generations to the distribution point. And the generations are the IPPs, or the generators as we call them. We have, over the period, undertake some petroleum exercises in the upstream, and also began some discussion to see the possibility in the long term, in future, to see how we can expand on our energy mix by introducing some other more effective way of making sure that the lights are being kept on. When we assume power as a government, which you are all aware, we came to power through power. At the time we assumed power, the energy sector was in crisis. And we promised the people of this country that we will make sure are kept on. Today, colleague minister, deputy ministers, chief executives here present, the media, as follows. What we promised to do, what we met, the metrics, what we have done, and how we're securing the future. What we promised to do, we promised to end doomsday, which caused the Ghanaian economy an estimated 680 million, translating. We promised to develop a 10-year power sector master plan to meet medium and long-term energy needs of the country. We promised to reduce taxes on electricity tariffs to households and industries. We promised to ensure that the procurement of new power projects undergone through competitive processes. Earlier on, we realized most of our generations or generators go through the process of negotiation. You all agree with me, ladies and gentlemen, that in any environment that there's a competition, there's value for money, and there's end result is that the consumers benefit. It is on that note that we promise that competition in generations will be introduced, which was never done in the previous administration. We promise to improve transparency in the management of oil and our gas sector through petroleum licensing processes. Just as generation and the power sector was done through negotiation, we said we will now also undertake competitions in our licensing round, rather than giving the blocks out and call 2 or 3 negotiators or IOCs to come in for negotiations. We will put it up for competition. This and many more are some of the few things that we promise to do. We also promise to increase proportions of renewable energy in the energy mix. Renewable energy, as you are aware, it's cleaner and it's environmental friendly. Due to the carbon emissions, the government promised that renewable energy must become a sizable proportion of our energy mix. We promise to introduce the Renewable Energy Act, which will make it mandatory for generators of fossil fuel to contribute in terms of adding certain proportions of their mix to be a renewable energy. What that means is that there's going to be an obligation on generators, such that generators that may go for fossil fuel generation will have to add corresponding proportions of that generation coming from renewable energy. What was the reality?
Lights on in the morning, it went off in the afternoon, came back in the evening around 7, and then went off again around 9. And that is usually called doom so.
What's that mean? What's that mean? So doom is off and so is on. So it's a joke that our electricity is always off on, off on, off on.
We didn't have enough rainfall because we solely depend on rainfall to fill the dam.
We are experiencing a significant drop in the water level, but because sometimes we overstretch the electric dams.
You know, when you wake up and there's no water, no power, no electricity.
Some of us are saying we don't think the issue is completely solved. We think because it's an election year, they're just trying to cover up.
Okay, let's go.
Next slide. You all recollect that after assuming power, we've been told that we do not come to power through power, and that the problem of Doomso was solved long ago. But this is just a typical evidence to demonstrate that even just before the election, there was Doomso. You can all see it from the presentation. I think the presentation is quite blurred. I don't know, Adamwa, you think our audience can read this? Now, workers of the Electricity Company of Ghana have disclosed that they have prepared a new load sharing timetable to enable Ghanaians enjoy power at an intermittent intervals. What that means is that the framers, or those who were responsible for our energy sector at that time, realized that there was excess demand over supply, meaning that we were then in a capacity short regime, which simply means that either the generators were available but could not be able to trigger the necessary power for the consumers, or the consumers were demanding more and the generators were not available. But what was the case? The case actually was the fact that there were a lot of generators available. The demand at that time was about 2,800 megawatts at peak. Even though the generators were available, there was no feed for these generators to drive the necessary current to the benefit of the consumers. It's just like saying you have 5 vehicles parked in your house and you've decided to drive to Kaneshi. But because there's no fuel, none of those vehicles will be able to move. So this was the situation. It was not a situation where the generators were less than demand, and therefore the need to add more generators. The generators were available, but we need competent management to make sure what makes these generators drive should become reality. And that is why, once again, I want to say a very big thanks to the chief executives of the various sector agencies. All these chief executives were not in place. They were new chief executives brought by His Excellency Nana Akufo-Addo. They make it possible for us to move the vehicle now from one point to another. I want to say a very big thanks to them. There were huge debt payments at that time. And in 2016, the total amount owed the ECG was over 2 billion. BOS had a backlog of unaudited account period from 2014 to 2016. The 2016 audited account reflected a total loss of 459 million from BOS operations. January 27, TOR owed BOS an amount of 13.3 million. BOS again made a loss of about 36.3 million and 459 million, highest ever in 2015. In January 2017, BOS owed its suppliers, BDCs, and related parties an amount of 624 million. Products not accounted for by BOS from its 8 BDCs was 35.9 million between 2010 and 2014. There were high cost of power. And it is true that because most of these generators at that time came into existence through negotiations, they were able to fix the tariff through negotiations. If tariffs or generations had then gone through competition, we will be looking for the best, but at a minimum. So that was why at that time, tariffs were extremely high. Please go back to the next the slide before this. The slide before this. There were increase of electricity tariff by 268% between 2010 and 2016. 268% increase in tariff. Next slide, please. There were excess capacity. You just recollect a few minutes ago at this stage that the problem was not because demand was available and cannot look for supply. The problem was because supply was in excess of demand, but supply cannot drive the needed power that we need. What happened when you sign power purchase agreements through negotiations? There is an element that we call take or pay. In a regime of take or pay, what it simply means is that whether the generator is available or not, you would have to pay for the capacity charge. It is just like going to rent your vehicle. A pickup I rented 2 days ago. I rented 2 pickups. I drove them myself to Hohe. Today, for instance, because I'm out, I've parked the vehicle. There is no fuel in the vehicle. It doesn't mean I come back to the owner and say, I'm not going to pay. You still have to pay for the rental charge. So this was the problem. We have generators available in numbers, far in excess of what demand wanted. But because at that time we don't have competent executives that will be able to drive the needed generators to work, we were paying for capacity charges. Capacity charges were paid in excess of about $100 million on monthly basis. Some of the IPPs paid, or we pay some of the IPPs between 25 to 30 million on monthly basis as capacity charges. If you lump all these capacity charges over a year, we're running into billions of dollars as capacity charges for decision taking that is not favorable to the consumers of this country. You recollect the Mahama-led administration signed so many contracts such that we're now using less than 40% of the contracted take-or-pay agreement. Currently, the demand growth of Ghana is about 200 megawatts on annual basis, because we are adding more equipment, we are adding more appliances, we are extending electricity to other places. There is always growth in demand everywhere that there is power. And this is normal within the energy sector. What it means is that in your power planning system, you should be able to be adding the 200 megawatts annually. The question is, do you wait for demand to grow to meet supply before you add, or you wait when demand is really in need of supply at that point that you add? There is a cause of which we call socialization. What happened at that time was that instead of making provisions for these 200 megawatts per annum, which of course would translate to the cost of socialization, power purchase agreement was signed ranging from 800 to 1,000 megawatts per annum during the 4-year term of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. So what it means is that you are adding more than it's necessary. And this is the rationale that trigger our capacity charge that we keep on talking about. And again, this, because somebody would have to pay for the cost of socialization, that element is therefore factored into your tariff, which makes our tariff at that time very high. Next page. What have we done so far? As a ministry, in collaborations with the various agencies, we decided to keep the lights on. We knew very well what happened in the past 4 years before assuming office can be corrected. The various chief executives were brought together with their expertise. These are guys that are trained, most of them trained in the same university that most of you attended here in Ghana. They were not extraordinary people. But because they were working under a directive of a leader who knows how best to address the problem, they were able to act promptly to make sure that the issues have been resolved. Ensuring availability of fuel for power generation. Regular payment of outstanding bills to IPPs. Implementation of the energy sector recovery program to restore the sector financial health and eradicate accumulation of debt. We have completed the reverse flow of gas. We've implemented the cash waterfall mechanism. We have relocated the car power from Tema to Takrady. We have improved on the grid system, and we've increased the use of renewable. In all these items that we've seen, we have not signed one power purchase agreement. We have not signed one power purchase agreement. Signing of power purchase agreement is the easiest job any ministry or agency could undertake in an energy system planning. To plan and make sure the lights are on goes beyond the signing of PPAs. Of course, if our peak demand is 2,800, 2,900, today, as I speak, our peak demand, our generators that are available, or the plants that have been constructed, are in excess of 5,000 megawatts. The time that Dumso was at its peak, generators that were available were more than 2,900 megawatts if you combine them. So the problem was not adding generation, but the problem was just bringing the various agency heads together to decide on how to address the problem, which was never done. And that is why today, with the involvement of all the sector agencies, we've been able to address this problem. One problem also was the fact that at that time, the Ministry of Energy was split into two. The power sector was doing his own thing, and the petroleum sector was doing his own thing. But power has to do with petroleum and power. So the two needs to come together to decide on a common platform on how to address this. This clearly was missing under His Excellency John Dramani's regime. Because of the separation of the ministry at that time, there were no thorough collaboration. This I say, and I'll continue to say it, because these are the facts. So people were signing PPAs without contact to make sure whether the gas will be available or the feed will be available. There was no provisions. PPAs were just signed on negotiation basis. Ensuring affordability. We have reduced the tariffs of electricity. Rural electrification levy, as you all recollect, was reduced from 5% to 3%. Street lighting levy was reduced from 5% to 2%. And we have reclassifications of consumer categories to protect lifeline and strategic industrial consumers. The issue of take-or-pay, I've dwelled extensively on that. We have reduced the renegotiation existing contracts to reduce the burden on the economy. For example, the Kwatum gas project, Takoradi LNG, Ameri Senate, all of them had been worked on. We have placed complete moratorium on signing of PPA or PCOA. A PCOA is just like the government guarantee. In the previous regime, because a lot of PCOA were given, what it means is that immediately you give a PCOA, what you're telling the person is, immediately you are available, we will be able to pay. And that's what a PCOA does. But what this government has done is to make sure that a complete moratorium placed on the PCOA and also the power purchase agreement with regard to the IPP. Excess take or pay, I think I've talked about that. Go to the next page. And so these are the things that we did to make sure that the lights are on.
Like many lights out car, we cannot sell here. They neutral feeling. But I'm all over film. The lights la neto clear at Balaji. And a motor is also. And a motor is neutral. But and I will be able to overlay and lights also. Lights etala. Never by Jico. But I'm what of a film. I don't know what I'm for. Safina Capora, I'm overlay. Oh, all is also a bloody valley. Say a moment down to upload you. I don't want to get away. I mean, they said feel safe. But the many lights later, Matan General, if you feel what I'm about for me, make pana around 12 to 1. But I'm more than one play na me cover. And you feel when you shallow, Mele Hawkey.
So these are some of the things that we did. Among them, which is major and critical, is that sometimes it baffles my mind why we have gas in Takoradi and you put a power plant that is procured on emergency basis a distance away from the gas. What it means is that if the gas has to travel from Takoradi to wherever you put this power plant, you will still have to pay for the transportation charges by the gas. The gas moving from Takoradi to Tema will have to pass through a pipeline, and the owner of that pipeline will have to charge you. We realize that the continuous placement of car power in Tema was adding more costs to our tariff. What we did was to move the car power from Tema to Takoradi with an assistance and support from GMPC. This was one of the major reasons why our tariff in 2017 could not see any increment as we saw in the past. By the completion of this movement, by 2018, 2019, we have tremendously reduced the tariff to our consumers. Financial sector restoring. We try to restore the financial sector through what we call the cash flow mechanism. The cash waterfall mechanisms was a recommendation empowering Ghana by the World Bank. It was a very good initiative to make sure that all collections are put into a basket, and therefore monies are distributed from that common basket based on a formula to all the generators, the distributors, and all the suppliers. This was done, and it was done correctly by the senior minister's office, which was in charge of this process. This has also restored a lot of financial health to the sector to make sure that at any point there will be some availability of money to pay these various sector agencies. That is the implementation of the cash waterfall mechanism. Go to the next slide. Regular payment of outstanding bills to the IPPs and other parties. We are not standing here today to tell you that we have completed payments of all debts to the IPP. But what we have done to make sure the lights are on, or the lights are showing, as you can see here today, is to make sure that through the cash waterfall mechanism, they are receiving money on regular basis. That makes them possible to procure the necessary feed to drive the generators. Next slide. We have completed the reverse flow of gas, as I've stated earlier, with a great support from GMPC. This made it possible that instead of just sending the gas from Takoradi to Tema, we could also use the same methodology to move gas from Tema to Takoradi. Don't forget, already we're getting some gas from Nigeria. So if there's a stranded gas, for instance, in Nigeria, under the previous administration, what will happen is that the gas will still be stranded. Today, under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we will be able to move gas in 2 ways. With my good friend Jonathan from Greco, you can see the beautiful things that they've done. We have improved on the grid system. The grid is the one that carries the electricity. If the grid is congested, of course, you'll not be able to harvest your power and transport it. What the gentleman has done is to make sure that he opened up the grid so that more power can flow through. That we did without adding any generation. Ensuring affordability. Under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, we procure an energy-saving bulb. 12 million energy-saving bulbs were procured. What this does is that the consumption of energy by the old system, where you use those bulbs that are not very effective, it makes you pay more bill. With this procurement and distributions of the energy-saving bulb, we and consumers were able to consume electricity and pay less. This slide tells you exactly what happens from 2010 to 2019. You can see the percentage growth of our tariffs. From 2010, it climbs up. If you take that as a baseline of 100, it moves as far as to almost 250%. But from 2017, it started coming down. Today, what it means is that today, under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, within these 4 years, the tariff that you are paying is far less than the tariff that you were paying in 2016. That's exactly what this graph is telling us. The tariff that we are paying today, after 4 years in power, the tariff that the consumers of electricity are paying is less than the tariff that you were paying in 2016. This has never happened in any energy planning system. This has never happened. You can travel across the whole of Africa and find out how this could happen. It has never happened. It did happen because Greco was talking to VRA, VRA was talking to GMPC, GMPC was talking to Ghana Gas to see how each of them could play the role. That is the trick. I'm sorry I have to say it here, but I have to tell you that was exactly what happened. Maybe when John Mahama and his people come back to power in another 20 years, they may be able to implement some of these things. So this is the trick. This is the trick. It costs less. It costs no money. It doesn't need to sign any IPP. You don't have to bring in anybody and ask him to construct any power plant, just by using the knowledge, collaboration, and identity. That is what exactly this government has done. You recollect that when we were about to reduce the tariff, my very good friend, a member of parliament for Bongo, he said reduction of electricity tariff will bring back Dumso. After reducing the tariff, are we witnessing Dumso? Are we witnessing Dumso? So it tells you the type of people who manage the energy sector of this country, because they did not know what we were doing behind. They have no idea of Greco expanding the grid. They have no idea of Ghana Gas putting in mechanisms for reverse flow. They have no idea of VRA going now to buy fuel at a cheaper rate. So when we bring all this together, it gives us value for money to be able to reduce our tariff. And we did it without adding any generation. Today, your power tariff, what you pay for 4 years, within these 4 years, is still less than what you pay in 2016. Next page. The renewable energy, as I stated earlier on, has a very important impact in our energy mix. It creates job opportunities, and it also helps to address our carbon dioxide emission. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, through our Renewable Energy Act bill, we decided to scale up the renewable energy. What renewable energy does again is that it helps to address the cost of transmission. And so in an area that you have what we call a redundant, an enclave, that can be far away from the transmission lines, you need to place a renewable near those areas to make sure that the cost of transmission of power is reduced. And that is why, under the policy of this government, we decided to construct renewable energy or solar panels around those areas to address the cost of transmission and making sure that we send power to those areas at affordable price. When we took power, renewable energy tariffs were 24 cents per kilowatt hour. 24 cents per kilowatt hour as far as 2016, 2015. These solar panels that you've seen have been constructed at 8 cents per kilowatt hour. What do we expect? We expect to have increases in the price on the 24 that were signed in 2014, 2016. But we rather brought it down to 8 cents per kilowatt hour due to the core competence of those who manage the energy sector. Please, next slide. This was what was said. Build solar parks in the northern part of the country, and to achieve this, we will provide investment tax credits to owners of the commercial, industrial, utility-scale solar photovoltaic system to take one-time tax credit of qualified install cost. So this is exactly what we said, and this is exactly, what we try to do. We have reduced the gas price. Gas price at that time, through ENI, which was signed, we were supposed to pay $8.8 per MMBTU as a price that we pay at a benefit for consumption of our gas. This government has reduced the price from 8.8 to 6.08. There is currently a further discussion to make sure that we bring the 6.08 down further to about 4. And that is why His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo is asking you, if you want to continue to enjoy power at an affordable price, give him 4 more to do more for you. The implementation of the Energy Sector Recovery Program to restore financial health of the ministry. One good thing about this government is that there's a high level of collaboration No minister under this government can create, credit, who will enjoy credit for doing something on its own. There is high level of collaboration, interministerial collaboration. It's one of the reasons why today we are also enjoying power at a very affordable rate. Today, under the Energy Sector Recovery Program, which was led by no other person than our senior minister, Omanfm, made it possible for us to be able to address some of the financial difficulties. On this note, I want to say a very big thanks to Honorable Omanfm for making this happen in collaboration with other ministers. You all know Omanfm one time took us as of HIPIC, and so he's very experienced in taking people from difficulties. So I have no doubt when he was able to do this magic. Thank you. Next, the issue of excess capacity was talked about. We placed moratorium on new contracts. We said it. The minister was in Parliament to address and members of this House, and he made it categorically clear that there's a moratorium on issuance of new contracts. That also did the trick. Renegotiated domestic gas price, we said that earlier on. Next slide. The Jubilee gas, in 2008, Jubilee gas was priced at 0. Within the 4 years of NDC in 2016, they moved the gas price to 3, Jubilee. When we came back, we brought it down again to 0. This and many more were the reasons why we having the lights on. Having the lights on have nothing to do with generation. Having the lights on have nothing to do with negotiations at generation. Having the lights on have to do placing competent people at the right place to deliver. COVID-19 relief. Whilst other parts of this world were facing difficulties in how to address their energy situations, problems, in making sure that the lights are on, while within the COVID period, countries find it very difficult to turn on their lights. Under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, further reliefs were given. And I think most of you gathered here might have enjoyed that relief. Even as I speak today, those customers that are still on the lifeline are enjoying their relief up to December. This is possible, and it has been done possible because of good planning and with collaborations from the Finance Ministry.
Michael Peteshi. Now, so far, no, me better prepaid. That was 3 days today. Me who say it's true. Interest now government can say bonus not the money. We spend it. That finance why are there?
Within the Anita Obino asset, may a vendor or Apapoku. I buy 50% no car server. A real about your system, say a real abba. It's a room so far almost checking, almost beside a pay meet a credit say, and yes, oh, maybe I can say not so mean top credit, so no, maybe I'd like the explain natural so 50% now. I buy car sort of my so okay, if you happy about it, if you okay, if you okay, what do you know so? But sometimes the women who face challenges they bring until like your trauma say, oh, say, yeah, about 50% so credits now hard. It is a message, and I say, who better credits now, maybe up to 50 cities. Now, maybe a bear 1.2. It's me say, yeah, buying fast or by 50%. Why am I Obia Jindi say, a free, now ever continues, sir.
Securing the future. We can only secure the future when the planners and the doers and the framers and the designers are allowed to continue what they're doing. In any design that a designer is not partial indexed of the construction or the performance, there's always a failure. In any design system that the framers, those who bring together how the architecture of the structure will look like, if those people are taken out of the supervisory role they will play during the construction stage, there will always be a failure. In any design that do not take into consideration the inputs of those who know best, the input of those who started it, there's always going to be a failure. And so the ideas and rationale that made it possible for us as a country to make sure that we are today witnessing sustainable, affordable supply of power is done because there are some framers and designers who, through their competent delivery, had made it possible for the design to be placed on the table. There is a way forward, and that way forward is to make sure how these designers and contractors are able to bring down further reduction in prices, making it possible to have a continuous supply of light, making it possible that the lights can travel far than we are witnessing today. It is therefore important, ladies and gentlemen, that securing the future through the lights being on can only be secure when these people are allowed to stay on and do whatever they are doing. It is on this note that I'm telling you that give these gentlemen who are sitting here, give these chief executives that who have the idea, give the president, His Excellency, Nana Addo Dankwa, the mandate, another 4 years to continue doing more for you. So going forward, we will significantly improve revenue collections with the implementation of a remote sensing technology, which is currently being piloted by the ECG. We will reduce losses, particularly in power distribution, by ensuring ECG and NEDCO implement incentive-based loss reduction targets for all. We will complete ongoing rural electrification projects to ensure there is value for money. We will undertake competitive procurement of power, the least cost fuel procurement, and minimizing excess capacity charges. Today, an amount of $130 million has been given out to make sure that ECG replace what we call its obsolete equipment. There are several equipments that ECG currently have that are not functioning. And this has been in existence, some for the past 20, 30 years. Under His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, without adding a generation, we thought it possible that if those equipment are replaced, it will add value, it will transport power faster, it will reduce the losses and make power cheaper at the roots. When power is constructed and transported, but what is generated is not able to reach the consumers as a result of obsolete equipment, that loss must be paid by somebody. If you generate 100 megawatts of power and you transport that power for a distance of 50 kilometers, because of the evidence and availability of obsolete equipment, that power that may reach the consumers may reduce to about 80. Who pays for the 20? You have to pay for the 20 through redundancy costs. And these are the costs that we've been paying at our generation at a benefit. His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has made available this fund to address the issue of obsolete equipment. And I'm believing that after addressing the problem of obsolete equipment, the lights will be brighter, power at benefit will be regular, and industry will grow. The loss within the industry that we saw 2% of GDP as a result of somebody's action and inaction can never be witnessed. Ladies and gentlemen, give us 4 more years to give you uninterrupted supply of power for the benefit of our generation. Nobinya the cap we open the tubio economy. Miapa joka clear ana no kekelem da mina nana adodankwa akufuado efenne na mi yi donyo ji na mi enye togbe ago banto open kosa mi ele akpana mi.
Yes, you can do better than that. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister for Energy, John Peter Amewu Togbi Ago, the first incoming Member of Parliament for the good people of the Hallway constituency. And I take notice of the Novinya Dekakpiokle interview. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. We shall proceed, and as we invite the musical interlude from Ose Kranchi, Seprawa Agrofarmer, I'd like for you to, if you may, kindly make a tweet at NBU, hashtag NBU. All the things that has been said here, one of them that I have taken note of is that we came to power through power. Honorable Minister, maybe we should add, and we will stay in power through power. We thank you very much. I recall those days on our way home, you have to pick your phone, make that call, Charlie Power Day House. These days, we no longer make those calls, Charlie Power Day House. And as our friends from Seprawa set up, I will also share a joke with you. I visited a church, honorable ministers, and it was time for testimony. And so there was this woman who was testifying to the numerous mercies of the Lord. Oh, that my husband has been sick and the Lord has healed him. The man says, amen, that is true. Oh, there was no money in the house, now there is money in the house. There was one testimony. The woman said, oh, I feel the woman said, the man said, oh, that one is not God, it's Nana Akufo-Addo. The pastor got curious and asked, why? He says, the only reason why I came home drunk all the time was that when I called Charlie Power Day House and they say there's no power, I try to while away time and not sleep in the heat. I try to while away time, and I make do with 1 or 2 bottles of beer. And that is how I got introduced to alcohol. And now that there is light, when I close from work, I go home straight. So as for the drinking part, that one day, it was Nana Akufo-Addo and not God. We welcome our colleagues from Seprawa Agrofarmer. Thank you very much.
Two.
It was Abrabo and Shassia by a bra when Uncle Poncan said, let there be light. Ebisana ewiase nyina ye sakasaka. Makania ne ba ye ne beche mu mienu. Ehun sum ehun hai. Insuo to na wiabo. Enti asase so ayetie Ghana ha pa ye kanea edi akotene se ye ka na ye ohamu nchemu be sa aduokronkron ene kakra. Ebisen to me frɛ me ye kanea akasamu ye kanea ade a me bo ye kanea ye bia enti mo men bia toto ne kanea asamasia na jese o ma no konsohwem ona bo ye do ase me wo ye me mentor ya madam fradada na me show. you want me to wait? I couldn't even enter my ship. Okasa for Okasaya. A man named May. Any unknown sunshine for Mamma Quaba. Separate Grenier. Okasa for Emma Monicasa. Mama Yama Monicasa. Yama Monicasa. Yama Monicasa. Yama Monicasa. Bama Bay. Yama Monicasa. Abraham Koswa, Kania so, and Nidia Baba, Ignam Kania so. Abraham Yabonas so, Adiama Connection so, and Yanam Kania. I'm a woman Koswa, Monacasa. Monacasa, Bama. I'm a woman, dear wire, and a dear bear, and a baby, I ate. Mamma Casa. I wear, and you remember to my Amabuno. Amabuna Moshame. Omoya Wadama. Omoya Shama Manone. Abraya woman, ya previa, and I do about 2 bread. And they may catch them on the set. And fear be a nice set there. When I'm over the canyon, you can want someone also. And to many baby now doubt. Besides, you know, my book from your coyamano, and I'm going near one. Sabre, Yamami, a quenya, my 7 year. You know, my book from your. You know my phobia. You know my phobia. Sapani bano be frau say yankwane yankokoma. Was a foul banner brand. Kanchana so one fan about me come. Na sutrobia na just a match and kakaka. Chinchina madam, in Chinamani das one more. Namomi and can say, Yan man for Frobia about 1 bra, Sawa, Ukokromotian one day, and to Okana Patuabano, Minia, or Madonna Sanko, and it does swallow, Maim. A man being a dow. Miss Row, you know, man for Frobia. You know my phobia. Maybe the master. You know my phobia. You know my phobia. Yaman Gana. You know my phobia.
Thank you very much. Ose Kranchi and Seprawa Agrofoma. Indeed, Yene Omanfm, and that is why we have to protect our gains. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, we have been live on the following media outlets: GTV, the station of the nation, Joy News TV, City TV, Adom TV, TV3, Happy FM, Metro TV, GH1 TV, MX24, Asasi Radio, Wontumi TV, Oman FM, Net2 FM, Asempa FM, and Home Base Television. We are grateful for your partnership, our colleagues in the media. At this juncture, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, my singular honor to invite the Honorable Minister of Information, Kojo Opon Nkrumah for his closing comments.
Honorable Pius, thank you. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's becoming clear that here at the nation building updates, we will continue to get a lot of hard data and facts, which if anybody wants to dispassionately use to discuss where we are going as a country, will make that discussion easy. Very often you hear the question asked, how much kilowatts of power have you added to the generating capacity of Ghana? Indeed, the last time when one person wanted to say, she said, how much kilowatts have you added to Dumso? I don't know if you heard that one. You can't add kilowatts to Dumso. But the real question is, how much kilowatts have you added to the generating capacity of Ghana? Now, if you look at the vision of the Ministry of Energy, it says it's to make energy accessible, available in an environmentally friendly manner. Some persons were of the view that to achieve this vision means just to be adding on generating capacity, but not caring much about how you even fuel that generating capacity. And it is these persons who keep asking the question, how much kilowatts have you added? Because to them, if you haven't added more kilowatts, you haven't done much to solve the problem. Today, the Honorable Minister has explained to us quite clearly that it has never been about adding more kilowatts, because we have indeed today, we have more kilowatts than we need. The problem, as existed in 2016, has been our ability to run the economy in such a way that you will find the resources to fuel the already existent generating capacity. And that you will find the competence to bring efficiency in the relationship between the agencies. And he has demonstrated today that the agencies under his ministry, on the watch of Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, are very well able to do that. For which reason today you have regular, uninterrupted power supply. You have reduced cost of power. I want to ask the colleagues up there to go back to the graph he showed us about the increases in cost of power. I think it's a very important graph, very important line graph, that all of us, even if you forget anything at all, it's one of the things that you should not forget. That line graph that shows the increases in the cost of power. So the first is that because of what they've done, not necessarily adding extra kilowatts, but by ensuring that the economy is run in such a way that there's resources to pay for the already existent generating capacity. Today you have regular uninterrupted power supply. Because of the efficiency that they've brought to bear by the relationship between the various agencies and ministries, when some persons thought that the smart thing to do is to separate petroleum and power, and therefore collaboration was low, they, under Akufo-Addo, are of the view that it needs to be put together so that you can find what we call synergy between the activities of all these agencies. They've achieved that. And now look at this graph. And pay attention from 2010, 2011, 2012, 2013. That was Dumso. 2014. That was Dumso, correct? So actually, when Dumso was here, cost of power was actually going up in the midst of an energy crisis. 2016, cost begins to stabilize. 2017, stabilize. 2018 comes down. 2019 goes up. 2019 goes up a little bit, but the net effect is a negative 5% reduction. This is what the efficiency has brought to bear on the cost of power, which is a second significant matter that I think we should not forget. They've also spoken about restoring financial health to the sector. Today, the existing liabilities of ECG, it is my understanding that it's been paid off. I think that's a matter the minister didn't mention. We have to give them a big round of applause. So the liabilities, the debt that government owed to ECG is gone. And now we have credit. So ECG owes government. Minister, we have to go for our money. And then they are also embarking on efforts to ensure that power is more efficiently delivered to you by moving car power, by doing reverse flows, by expanding the stations, etc. This is what competence can do. This is what competence can do. This is what competence can do. Honorable Minister and your chief executives, we want you to rise so that we can applaud you and celebrate what you've been doing there. So please rise. Chairman and the team, let's give them a big round of applause for the work. And we thank you for your service to the people of Ghana. I'll inform the President that you've come to present your report and you've done it adequately. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it's my understanding that we'll be preparing for the closing prayer and then the General Assembly as we wrap up. Thank you very much.
Yes, we shall invite Alhaji Suwala Calipstone, Assistant Director at the Ministry of Energy, to give us the closing prayer. I recognize Mr. Prince Benjamin Abuaje, the Deputy CEO at the Petroleum Commission, and Honorable Osei Kwame Prempe, MD of the Goil Company Limited. I recognize you, gentlemen. Mr. Suwala Calipstone, if you are here, Islamic prayers to close us. Thank you very much.
We thank Allah for a successful program today. So we say, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghayril maghdubi 'alaihim waladdallin. Amen.
Yeah.